Great, so now the meeting is being recorded. So like I said, many of you have actually been in class with me before or have met me in person, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to see what I look like. I am the doctoral student administrator, so my job is to make sure that everybody gets through the doctoral program safely and has a good time doing it, as well as learns something. And that's what we're talking about today. Specifically, when I sent this survey out to all the students, I found out that many of the students will actually wanted to know about dissertation. And what do I need to know for my dissertation? How does the dissertation work? What's the process like? And so one of the biggest components of a dissertation in general is research. And it's not only the research that you do yourself, but the research that you base that research on. And typically that means for a standard dissertation, you may end up having 100 to 200 articles that you've read for that dissertation that you have to keep track of. And that can be a lot. Sometimes there's even more depending on your subject matter. And some of those articles you only need a paragraph in. So some of those articles you only need a really small part of the article in order to complete your literature review. So for example, if your dissertation is on K-12 education and you're talking about in-classroom technology, and you want to talk about a specific type of technology that's used in classrooms, you may want to have a research article that defines that technology. And that may be the only thing you use from that whole article is the definition of the technology. So you can begin to see if that's a 30-page article and you have 100 other 30-page articles, you can begin to see how finding one paragraph later can really be a big burden or a lot of trouble. So we're going to talk about how do you make that easier? How can you fix that problem so you can actually find what you want to know when you want to know it? So before we start out, does anybody have any questions? Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video so we don't eat up too much bandwidth. I did want to put a picture on there. Albert Ybarra is in the classroom with us, and he is our technology specialist. Albert, do you know how to make a picture appear in the video box? Awesome. So while Albert's taking care of that and nobody else has any questions, Rhoda, are you back online? Can you hear me? I turned off the video so the bandwidth is a little smaller and perhaps it'll be easier to stream the content. Perfect, Albert. Thank you so much. So that's me looking fresher than this yellow tinted room that I'm currently in. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep on moving. So tonight we're going to be talking about organizing your research using Zotero as a citation manager. Now there are many other citation managers out there and we'll talk about those. But the everything we're going to talk about tonight applies to every single citation manager in existence. They just all go about it a different way. I prefer Zotero because number one, it's free. Number two, it has an add-on for Firefox, so you can actually put citations into your reference manager right from the browser. And it's simple. It doesn't do a lot of complicated things, so it's easier, I think, to understand. So the first thing we're going to do is discuss citations and reference planning. So the idea then is that we are going to be looking at how do you plan for a big research project. The second, we're going to look at the current methods that people are using in class and how people are writing their papers and how that's getting done. We're going to talk about taking notes and the importance of taking notes. Then we're going to discuss Zotero, and then I'm going to show you some examples of how to use it. Is everybody on board? Can I get a yes from everyone in the audience? Yay. Perfect. Okay. Let's get moving. Okay, so here is the basic bottom line. You should only read a research article one time. One time. That should be your rule, that you never have to read an article more than once. Does anybody have an idea of what that means? Since there are only 3 of us, if somebody wants to speak, I can turn the speaker over to them for a moment. Or you can type it out, either way, whatever is easier for you. Exactly, Joanne. You have to be able to take proper notes on the document so that you don't really have to go back and read through the entire document again. When you're doing research for a dissertation, part of the time it takes to get through the dissertation process is having to go back and find the information that you know is somewhere because you read it once, but you don't remember where you read it. And so you have to go back through and look through all of your notes. And that can take time. So the idea behind this whole process of managing your references and your citations is so that you know where the information is and you know what the information is. You know if an article only has one paragraph that is good, or if the whole article is a good article and everything in it is important. You know, during the research process, you're going to find articles that are amazing, that you have everything in the article is highlighted because everything in the article is exactly what you want to talk about. And then you're going to have articles that maybe have one sentence that you think applies to your project. It's a good sentence because otherwise you would just throw the article away and wouldn't use it. But you're only going to have one sentence in that whole article. So you'll have both of those as possibilities. So the idea behind this is you need to be able to categorize your sources around themes so that if you want to pull up that theme later, you know where that theme is. And the earlier you begin in this process, the better off you'll be. If you read 50 articles and then decide at the end of the 50 articles that you want to divide them up into 3 different categories, by that point, it's going to be really hard to figure out which article goes where and how does it apply and those kind of things. For example, in my dissertation, I did boundary management. I looked at people who live where they work, specifically student affairs, residence life, residence directors who live in dorms and manage the dorms they live in. So I needed research on student affairs. I needed research on mentorship. I needed research on boundaries and boundary management. And I needed research on working from home, or actually there was no research on working from work. So, I mean, living where you work. So, but I needed some working from home literature to kind of understand how boundaries are set in that situation. Those 4 categories I developed early and was able to collect data in them. Later on, one of my committee chairs wanted me to add in psychology, the psychological research around boundaries. I was able to add that category in and develop it. Then, just recently, when I did the article for the conference that we just had, I was able to go back in and pull the mentorship research out because I had it in a separate folder. I knew where it was able to pull it out and use it again for a current paper that I was writing. So many of you are just beginning your doctoral program, and you're going to be reading a lot of articles for class. You're going to be reading books, you're going to be reading other things. If you start taking notes now and you start putting those sources into categories, later when you sit down to do your dissertation or when you're doing another paper for another class, you'll already have the resources available and can use them for the next paper that you do. Does that make sense to everybody? The whole idea here is to make this easier for everyone, to make the process so that you have everything you need at your fingertips. Okay, so we're going to do a quick poll. This is fun and exciting. Let me pop it up here. So currently, do you use the Citation Manager? And if you do, which one do you use? So you can just click on the poll of which which way do you handle your references and citations, all those articles you're reading. Which way do you currently handle those? EndNote, Mendeley, do you print out articles on paper and just keep notes on the article? Do you use ReferenceWorks, Zotero? Do you use note cards and keep track of your sources on note cards, or something else? What currently do you use now? Just click the box. Joanne, ultimately, yes, your topic does have to be approved. And that will include your research question. Okay, I should have made that multiple choice, huh? See if it's too late to change that. Okay, now you can make multiple choices. If you'll go back and make your choices one more time, you can also choose one or more choices if you do several things. Let's try that one and see where we are. Okay, so somebody already uses Zotero. Who already uses Zotero? That's great, Albert. Rhoda, can you still not see the box? Let me move it down. I hit it really quickly. Let me, oops, wrong button. There we go. Now you should be able to see the box where the PowerPoint was. Okay, great. Okay, somebody didn't vote. We're missing a vote. Okay. There we go. Now we're getting those votes in. So it seems like that people rely on either printing it out or using EndNote and then something else, some other way of doing it. So who said that they do it using some other way to manage their references and resources? Okay, Joanne, what do you currently use to keep track of all your references and notes? So you just read the articles and keep them in your memory? So you have an app that you've used before to manage resources, but not for classwork. When you were in your master's program and you had to write a paper, how did you keep track of the articles? Okay, good. Okay, yep, paper. So paper is the primary way that happens, I think, for a lot of people. And when I started my dissertation, which was only 6 years ago, paper was my choice also, because I hate reading electronically on a computer. So I often would print out paper copies. So let's talk about that a little bit. Oops. There we go. Okay, so the other questions I have are, what type of computers does everybody use? Mac or PC? All right, we got 2 PCs and a Mac. That's good. I cover both of them in the presentation, so that should be helpful. And you have an iPad too. We'll talk about that as well. I recommend everyone have an iPad. And then currently, what are your research needs at this point? Now, Joanne, you had a question about resource collection. And let me explain what I mean by resources. Now, this is the important part. What we're talking about today are journal articles. Articles from journals that you have collected in order to write a paper or in order to write your dissertation's literature review. So we're not talking about other resources like interviews you've done or data collection. We're talking about articles, journal articles that you've read, books that you've read, anything that you read that someone else wrote that you need to keep track of or take notes on. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to resources for this actual class or this actual workshop. And so to answer your question, Joanne, you should be collecting resources all the time in every class you go. Most of your classes will have articles that you have to read, research that you have to do online to find peer-reviewed academic journal articles from which you're going to write your papers and things on. So that's what we're talking about now. So I'm not sure, Heather or Joanne, you're just starting 605, so you may not currently have had to do any research for a paper. When's the last time you actually had to pull journal articles and do some research for a paper? Okay, so for both of you, it's been a while. Well, that's what we're here to talk about now, because you're going to be doing it in class. And if you start organizing your research now, You're going to be much happier later on when you get to the dissertation phase. Rhoda is further along in the program. Rhoda, you've probably pulled journal articles for papers very recently. Exactly. So you're going to, all through your program, and Heather, you may even be able to use this for work. All through your program, you're going to be keeping track of these resources. And so, like I said, when I first started my PhD program 6 years ago, every article that I had for class, I'd print it out, I would read it, I would highlight the parts that I thought were important, and then I'd go back and write a paper from those articles. Usually, I would say the papers were 5 to 6 or 7 pages long, and I used probably 2 or 3 or 4 journal articles. And really, that was really easy to manage. Highlighting notes, maybe taking a note here or there in the margins. It was really easy to manage because I didn't have anything that was that complex. Flash forward 4 years to when I started on my dissertation, and if I needed to quote a leadership theory, I had to dig through piles, because by that time, after being in a program for 3 years, I had piles of articles. And I had to dig through those to try to find the citations or references that I wanted to use for my literature review and my dissertation. So if I had known about Zotero earlier, I would have been able to organize them from the start, which is why I wanted to present this now, so people could actually really be able to make plans. So that's a little bit about why we're doing this. So let's talk a little bit about note-taking. Now, there's a joke that undergraduates highlight, master's students write notes in the margin, and then doctoral students conceptualize the research. And the idea behind that is, on an undergraduate level, you're just trying to get facts that you can spit back out to your teacher. So you typically highlight things and you use a lot of direct quotes. So you say, in this article, they said there were 50 people that went to this event, or this happened in the year 1984, according to this article. So in your undergrad, you really need to just highlight things and then spit those back in a lot of direct quotes. By the time you get to your master's level, you should be synthesizing more. So what you'll usually do is read a section in the article, and then I'll get back to that, Rhoda. I'm working up to that now. Can you hear me okay though now? Can you hear me now? I think, Rhoda, you're probably on a little bit of a delay. I can't see what everybody's connection speed is. Must be part of the new. Albert, if you can make connection speeds appear for everyone, that would be awesome. I don't know if that's a possibility. It used to do that. But anyway, what I was saying is that when you are, when you're a master's student, you are thinking about summarizing things. So what you'll tend to do is read an article and take notes in the margins all through the article. Or you'll read a book and you'll take notes in the book. Either way, using that methodology, your article is full of all these different notes. When you get to the doctoral level, it's more about, like I said, conceptualizing how the article fits into your general argument, the general idea of what you're doing. Doctoral students in papers very seldom quote things. Instead, you're actually sometimes just using articles at the end of a sentence to verify your point. You may not even actually quote anything from the article. because by that point you're becoming more of an expert. Thank you, Albert, for that. So for example, if I'm writing a paragraph about using boundaries, I may pull from many articles to write that paragraph that are all in my head. So at the end of the paragraph, I just cite the sources in a big citation. Maybe cite 3 or 4 articles. So I could say something like, research over the past 10 years has found that boundaries are typically drawn around domains that people are familiar with. Then end that with a citation and cite several different sources and end that. Because at this point, I'm using general information that I've gathered from a great deal of resources. So in order to do that, typically doctoral students will make about a one paragraph note on every article to explain what that article is about, the point that they made. What is the main point of the article? Why is it important? So on the doctoral level, you'll be doing these 1 paragraph summaries of every article you read, and usually you write those on the front of the article. But again, you may need quotes. When you get to your dissertation and you're writing a literature review, you are going to need to pull in some quotes. It can't be just a summary of everything that you've read. So there needs to be a combination of all that you've learned. You need to do some highlighting, you need to do some note-taking in the margin, and then you need to do a summary in the very front of the article. So all 3 of those will be important at a doctoral level for you to keep track of what you've read. Personally, I like using the iPad, and there's a program called Goodreader for the iPad, and that program allows you to read journal articles and highlight them using your finger. And when you finish reading the article, you can actually email the notes from the article to your email. And all of the things you highlighted will be cut out of the article and mailed to you in an email. Now that's important because then you can add the notes and only the notes to your citation manager. And then everything is electronic. So later you can choose to go back and reread those notes and either summarize them or use a direct quote from them because you actually have the direct words from the article. But there are other PDF readers. It's not just the iPad. Adobe has, I think Adobe Professional allows you to highlight and copy the notes that you've highlighted. But there are others. There's Android applications and other applications that will let you read these articles and highlight them. I strongly suggest, though, getting an iPad if you can. I know they're expensive, but you can maybe get a used one or get a refurbished one from Apple, and it really will help you to really have all your articles, read them, highlight them, and then send the notes to yourself. It's a great deal there. You may be able to do that with a Kindle too. So if you have a Kindle and it lets you download PDFs to it, you may be able to highlight those and export the notes. The important thing is to be able to capture the notes from the article and never have to go back to that article again. It also helps to save a tree. Okay, any questions about note-taking? Note-taking. Any questions about note-taking? Joanne, I've never used Zotpad, so I don't know. The thing that would be important is, can you highlight paragraphs in a PDF and then export that paragraph to email or cut and paste it to another document? That would be the question. I've only used Goodreader. That's the one I use because it's really easy to use and I know that it's going to work. But you know, there's hundreds of stuff out there, and I have a list of things at the end of class that I can share with you as well. It's a Zotero app for the for the iPad. I've never used it. That's a good question. You'll have to let me know if you do end up using it, how it works. Now, it may be that it will integrate directly with Zotero, so that could be really cool. Heather, do you, or Rhoda, do you have any questions? Okay, great. We may have lost Rhoda. Sometimes that happens with this online Flash environment. Okay, so you have notes. What happens next? So you need to remember the read only once rule. You should not be pulling articles out and reading them over and over again to find information you need. If you do that, you're wasting your time, and when you're doing a dissertation and you have 100 articles, it almost becomes impossible. You also have to deal with I know I read something about that dilemma. And this was a big deal for once you get further along in the doctoral program. Oh, good, Rhoda. I'm glad you made it back. Once you get far enough along in the doctoral program, you will have read probably 20 books for class. You will have read probably 100 articles in the course of the 4 or 5 years in the program. You will have read a lot of information. And all of that information may not be useful. Some of it may be more useful than others. But it could all be something that informs your dissertation. However, you may go out on a limb and completely research new information for your dissertation. So you may not use any of it. The question is how can you keep track of that? So you don't sit there and think, oh my God, in 605, I remember they taught us about leadership models. I don't remember what that article was though. And so then you have to go back through your notes, you have to go back through all your stuff. You have to go through a lot of different stuff. Okay, Rhoda, that's good to know. Are you using the Adobe Connect app, or are you going through the web browser? Because the iPad does have an Adobe Connect app, and that might actually help it stream easier, though I'm not really sure. I haven't used the iPad to watch a class before, though I did use it to teach one time in an emergency. Oh, good. So you have the Adobe Connect app. That's great, Joanne. Okay. The other issue that you need to think about is once you read the article, I once read an article, and it's the best article I've ever read, but you don't remember who it was by. So now you're like, oh my God, I read this article about leadership, and I have no idea who wrote it. I don't know where it came from. I don't even remember what class. I just know it was the best article. It's exactly what I wanted. That's the other thing you want to avoid by keeping track of your citations. I now have citations that are 3, 4 years old, and I still have them. They're in my web browser. They are synced online. I know exactly where they are, and I know how to search for them. So that is one of the things that will benefit you if you adopt a citation manager early. All right, so let's talk about Zotero. What is Zotero, and why are we here tonight talking about it? Zotero is a citation management tool that facilitates collecting and organizing references that you get from databases, websites, catalogs, books, video from YouTube, any source that you can capture electronically or that you can take notes from will allow you to use Zotero to organize it. It's just an organizational tool. It's not magic. It doesn't read the articles for you. It won't find articles for you, which was, if you use EndNote, that was one of the things about EndNote that really bugged me, was that EndNote tries to find articles for you and ends up importing hundreds of links that don't work into your database. I like to keep my database pure, so I find my articles on my own, and then Zotero remembers them. Zotero is an add-on for Firefox, that lives in the web browser, and the data is in the web browser. It is also a freestanding program. It's also a program that you can download and actually just put on your computer. And if you download the one that stands alone by itself, it will also work with Chrome and Safari. So if you have a Mac, it will work with your Safari. And when I say work with, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is when you're looking at an article on the internet, you'll be able to, let me jump to that, hold on. When you're looking at an article on the internet, you're going to be able to actually click on a button and download that article to your Zotero. So it will capture it from the internet and it will put it on your computer. The other thing about Zotero is it will sync online as well. So for free, again, it's a free account, you sign up with them, it will sync your references between your laptop to the internet and then also to your desktop computer, or if you use more than one computer, it syncs to that. So when I started using my computer here at work, I was able to download Zotero to my Firefox and instantly link to every article that I had in my database from my entire PhD program. All of it was there. All of it is still exactly how it was. Now, one of the things that didn't translate over so well was the articles themselves. And that's one of the issues where you have to plan your strategy for where you're going to store your articles, because they don't store them online. Or if they do, you have to set that as an option. So you want to think about that. Where am I going to keep the actual articles? Because Zotero can keep the articles, but it keeps them on your computer. It doesn't keep them in the internet. The citations are there, though, so you should always be able to go back and find the article if you need it. So Zotero can sense items that you're viewing on a web page. Books, journal articles, websites, audio files. It lets you select which item from the web page you want to capture the data from and keep it in your records, which is a really cool thing. So what can you do with Zotero? What are some of its uses? Well, you can organize your information into files. You can highlight and annotate documents. You can cross-reference and tag related materials, so you can actually match documents together. You can insert notes, so you can insert citations and reference lists into your work. And you don't need to use, Zotero does make an add-in for Word, so you can do it directly into Word, but that creates these little macros that if your teacher's trying to grade it, become a real problem. So you can actually, there's just a sequence of buttons you push, and that will allow you to instantly put a citation into your work, and it will allow you to instantly put a list of references into your work. You can share a database that's stored in a network drive. You can also export your citations to EndNote, or you can import citations from EndNote. Zotero was created by the Center for History and New Media at George Mason University. It's been funded by the United States Institute of Museum and Library Sciences Services, and also the Andrew Mellon Foundation and the Alfred Sloan Foundation. It is a free program. You don't pay for it. It's open source, so they're constantly developing new things for it. You can go to Zotero.org to download it, and there'll be a link for this later. You can do the standalone version for Windows or Mac, or you can put the extension in your Firefox browser, but that's the only browser that lets you put the extension in it. And I'm going to show you all these things in just a few minutes, so I'm just going a little fast so we'll have plenty of time for the demonstration. You set up your account at Zotero. It's free to set up an account, and that lets you register, that lets you sync online all of your references so that then you can move them to other computers. All right, let's not go through this right now. It also allows you to index your PDFs, so when you search for a word, it will be able to read the PDFs and find the word in the article. So if, for example, you didn't capture the notes for something, but later you needed it, you can just search for the term and find it in your PDFs, which is really very useful. Again, it's all about you're sitting there and you're writing a paper, whether it's a 5-page paper or a 300-page paper, and you realize, I need to talk about transformational leadership. And I need a good definition for transformational leadership. So you can go to Zotero and you can type in transformational leadership, and it will search through all your notes. It will search through all the titles of your articles. It will search through the abstracts for your articles. And if you have the PDF attached, it will search through the PDF. And it will show you all the sources that you have that mention transformational leadership. You can then look through those notes and find one that has a good definition of what transformational leadership is, and then you instantly have that available. Saves you tons and tons of time. And this is, again, just some examples of how you can save articles. You can save a whole collection of citations. You can save a newspaper article. You can save a newspaper article. You can save government articles. You can even save pictures of websites. So you can take a snapshot of a website to save the actual page that you were looking at on the internet, just in case it gets deleted or something. You can also capture information about YouTube videos. Let's see. All right, let me show you now, because we're running low on time, let me show you an example of how it's going to be used. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone. And I'm not going to be able to see comments, so when I'm sharing my screen, so if you have any questions, I'll check back periodically for the questions. So let's do screen sharing. Okay, now, you should all be able to see that my Mozilla browser on your screen. Can everybody see my Mozilla browser? I think hopefully your comments will pop up. Yes, good, your comments are popping up. Great. Okay, good. Okay, good. So I can actually see your comments too. That's awesome. All right. So good. So now, if I go to Google Scholar, and I want to look for citations. Now, at the bottom over here, the bottom right corner, you'll see the word Zotero. If you click on that, the in-browser add-on pops up. Now, the in-browser add-on is where all of your citations are, and these are all the citations that I had for my dissertation. Here's my entire library of all of my articles that I use for my dissertations. This includes books, dissertations, it includes videos, anything I used for my article, for my dissertation, and for other things I did in school at the time are here. So the basic parts of this is over on the left side, over here, you see your library, and you can create folders in your library. So for example, this mentorship chapter is the chapter that I wrote for the conference. And these are all of the sources that I used for the conference. Only the sources that I used are in this folder. That way I can just select the entire folder and get a reference list, and then every citation I used will have a reference at the end of my paper. It makes it very easy to manage your paper that way. In the middle is your library list, and then over here on the right side is the actual information. So let's start with this all in a day's work journal article that I read. So when you look over here at the information, you'll see that it is a journal article. You'll see the title. You'll see the author's names, first and last name. You'll see the abstract. Now you can click on that abstract and see the whole thing. And that's all captured off of the internet. You can see the publication, the volume, the issue, the pages, the year. The DOI number, if it existed, would be here. The URL is here for the stable source of that connection. And then you have your other information. I can click on the stable source. Let's see, should be able to click on it. Oh well. And I can copy it into my browser. And it will take me to the article that this is referencing at JustStore. Now, since I didn't log in through the library, I would have to pay to download it. But if I logged in through the library website, I'd be able to get this. But you can see here's a permanent link to this article that I saved here 3 years ago. And that's all from the information section. This is where your citation comes from. Now, if I look at my notes, I have a note summary here. Now, I'm going to make this full screen, which is one of the options, really quickly so you can see that. These are the notes that I took through Goodreader. I highlighted a section. It told me the date I highlighted it. And then it told me the page number. And then whatever the information I highlighted was. So for example, here's the highlighted quote. Now you can see that some of it is bad, and the reason for that is when the article was translated into text by the Adobe PDF, all the text wasn't very good. So if I was going to quote this, I would need to fix all of these dash marks because these are broken words that need to be fixed. But this is notes. It's actual physical notes from the article that I highlighted in Goodreader and then exported to my email and cut and paste them into the notes. So now, for example, this is talking about, let's see if I can find something that would be fun. Permeability is the degree to which a role allows one to be physically located in the role's domain, but psychologically and behaviorally involved in another role. So permeability. So let's say I'm working on my dissertation and I want to find out about permeability and I forgot about it. Permeability. Did I spell it right? Permeability. I must have permeability. How did I spell it wrong? Evil permeability. Let me find that again. I hate all the I's in ability. Okay, so I can go up here and I can type in that word and it pulls up all of the articles that have something about that word in them. These are the articles here. All of these articles have something about permeability in them. But where, I'd have to check. So I can look at the notes in the article and I can see where it talks about permeability. Here it talks about permeability in these notes. So I know that this article also talks about it. I have the original Ashford article that talked about it. So therefore, I can go in and easily pull up any note that might have permeability in it as part of the notes from that article. And then I could decide which ones I want to use in my paper. Or I could compare them together and critique them. Because part about doing a literature review is about comparing and contrasting. So I could say Bulgar and Hoffman, Matthews, talk about permeability as being elements of one domain are found in another domain. But Ashford says that they are the degree to which one's role is located in another domain. So then I could say, I believe that the Burger-Hoffman view is not as inclusive as Ashford's view, and that would be a literature review. I've now used two articles to highlight or contrast each other, and I said which side I believed was right. That can be done because you have the ability to go back and forth and look at these articles in this one group right here. So all of this is anything related to permeability that I have in my database. So can you see how useful that would be for when you're working on papers? Yeah, it really, really will help you. And if you keep the library organized into folders like this, you'll always be able to find, ways to make it easier to understand it. Every paper that you write should have a folder, and all the resources that were used in that paper should be in that folder. You can have hundreds of folders, and just the references can be used 100 times. Just because a reference is in this folder doesn't mean it can't be in this folder as well, or this folder, because they're all in the library. The library is the sum of all the folders. So they're all in your library. You can just put them into different folders to organize them. Okay, now let's talk about finding an article. Let's say we're going to research adaptive leadership, which is an amazing leadership concept. So I type in adaptive leadership in Academic Search Premier. Now this is the library, and I am logged into the CityU library. And you'll learn this as you go along in the program. Rhoda already knows this. You typically want to find articles that are full text and articles that are scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. That gets rid of the newspaper and magazine articles. Now, adaptive leadership and the practice of medicine, a complexity-based approach to reframing the doctor-patient relationship. Well, that's not really what I'm interested in. So let's look for something I really want. Okay. A question of trust. Perceived connections for conditions for adaptive and technical leadership in educational contexts. That looks like a good article. So I go here and I pull it up and I want to read the abstract. The abstract will tell me here what the article is about. But let's say I like it. So up here in the top, does everyone see this little envelope up here in the top, or this little piece of paper? That's telling me that Zotero knows that this is something that can be saved. So let me actually minimize Zotero back down to the browser. Okay. So if I click that little piece of paper, the information is saved to my library. And now what is saved there, if that little pop-up will go away, what is saved there is the journal article, the name of the article, the authors, the abstract, the volume, the DOI number, the URL link. Everything that you need is saved there. Now, there's no notes because you haven't added any. There are some tags that you can tag it so that you can search for tags. There's no related articles that you've related to it. But now here's the deal. Let's find who is this by. Daily. Okay, so here's the article. You can see it also brought in the full text. This is the PDF, full text of the PDF right here. You just click on it and bang, it opens up the full text. So now I could read the article here, or I could export it to my Dropbox, which is what I did, and then read it on my Goodreader on my iPad. But either way, the article and everything that you needed is right here. And that was just from clicking on this one little white piece of paper at the top of the screen because I liked this article. You could also have exported it. And when you click export, it asks you what format. All you do is RIS format. And that works for Zotero. Save it and it will save to your Zotero. Let's see. Oh, nope. Nope. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Now, let me pull up my PDF. Okay. So Zotero then captures what you have read and the citations and puts them into a searchable database. And really, that's the key that I want to impress upon you. Whether you use EndNote, whether you use Mendeley, whether you use anything, it should be searchable. Paper and notes on paper are not searchable. You can't search through them. The best way to do that is to have, if you have to use paper because you would just rather use paper, then you need to use note cards. You need to write out the notes from the article on a card. You need to write the APA citation for the article on the top of the card. And you keep those in an index card file based on the categories you need. That way, if you're looking up mentorship, you just code the category in the index cards and you find all the articles on mentorship. And then you read the handwritten notes to see which one matches. That is 1,000 times harder than just going and typing in a keyword and searching through all of your references. But you want to capture more than just the references. You also want to capture the notes. And that's where using your iPad to read it or using some other reader will help you to do that. Here's some readers that you can use. Zotero has a reader. BibliUp has a reader. Papership, Zotpad, the one you were talking about, Joanne. It lets you view and edit your library and attachments on your iPad or your iPhone. So Zotpad might be the future. I didn't even know Zotpad existed, so that might be new. Scanner for Zotero, Zandy. You can also use the Goodreader, which is the other one that I was talking about. When you do that, you highlight your notes, you export the notes to yourself. I exported them to my email, and then I cut and paste the email notes into Zotero. So the notes are there forever. They live in my Zotero, and they sync to the internet, and they sync to my other computers. So any computer I'm on, I can pull those notes up. And apparently now you can do it on your iPad too with the Zotpad. So there's all kinds of resources for that. Here's a link to the quick support for Zotero. I'm available anytime for you to ask me questions about these kind of things. That's kind of what the doctoral student administrator is for, is to help with these kind of esoteric ideas that you wouldn't learn about in class. You're not going to get a teacher to teach you about using Zotero in class. That's what I'm here for. So if you have questions about it, call me up. I can help with that. Strategies for taking notes, strategies for writing papers, strategies for your comp exams. We can talk about those things. I can't help you, obviously, with your comp exam. I can't help you write a paper. But what I can do is give you feedback on the best way to do it. So make sure if you have questions during the program, you always let me know, and I'll work with you on those. I didn't go back to school until I was 35 years old for my doctoral degree. Actually, no, doctoral degree was 38. Let's see, yes, so 39 I started my doctoral degree, but I got my master's right before that. But I went back to school very late in life, so I understand what a lot of our students are going through when they go back for a degree. It's not easy, but it can be done. I'm living proof. So that's all I have for this evening. Does anybody have any final questions? You're welcome, Heather. Please, and let me know if anything comes up after this class too. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm glad it was good for you. We had 12 people signed up, but 3 people is still an amazing amount of people to be able to share this with. So I'm really happy that you all came. I promise that if you adapt electronic note-taking and using a citation manager, you will find when you get to your literature review, it'll be a breeze. Because if you use it for small papers while you're in the program, by the time you get to the end, you'll be an expert in it, and you'll be able to cut and paste citations. You'll be able to know everything about it. It's really nice. Okay, have a great evening, and always remember I'm here for you if you need me. I am going on vacation next week. That will be the only time I won't be around, but I'm sending everybody out an email about that next week. So have a wonderful